My name is Ella. I'm 28. It's funny how the world looks so different when you stop and really think about it. I used to think love was everything, something you could hold on to forever, something that never faltered. But then, life has a way of making you question everything you thought you knew. This isn't some grand love story. No, it's real. It's messy. And it's mine. But if you're listening, maybe you'll find a bit of your own story in mine. Sam and I, we met in college. Fresh out of high school, with dreams bigger than the world seemed to offer. We were young, foolish, but in love. It was easy then. Love was an adventure, a journey with no destination. We didn't have to talk about the future, we just lived in the moment. But somewhere along the way, that magic started to fade. It wasn't like we woke up one day and decided to stop caring. No, it was a slow unraveling, like the thread of a sweater pulled just a little too hard, over and over again. Until one day, it's gone, and you're left staring at the empty fabric, wondering where it all went wrong. This house, it used to be full of warmth and promise. Sam and I built it together. Every decision, every little detail, it was ours. We thought it would be our forever. But over time, the walls didn't just hold memories. They started to hold secrets. Not the kind you find in a detective novel, no. The kind you bury deep within yourself until they fester and start to seep out. I never imagined I'd be here, sitting in this house, alone. Sam and I, we'd built a life together. But lately, something felt off. The conversations we used to have, the closeness we once shared, everything had changed. It wasn't like we fought, not really. It was just the silence. The moments when neither of us seemed to know what to say anymore. The way we'd sit across from each other, both in the same room, yet feeling miles apart. And then there's Alex. I've known him since high school. He's one of those people you can always rely on, no matter how much time passes. We don't talk often, but when we do, it's like no time has gone by at all. Maybe that's why Sam never liked him. Maybe that's why he always made things uncomfortable whenever Alex was around. But I never saw it as an issue. Alex was my friend, just a friend. That's it. I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't think I had to explain myself. Alex was a part of my past, and I didn't want to pretend he didn't exist just because Sam felt uncomfortable. But maybe I should have seen it coming. Maybe I should have known that everything had been building up to this moment. Because in that moment, when Sam finally spoke, everything shifted. You know, I don't like how much time you spend talking to him, Sam said, his voice cold, not angry, just distant. He wasn't looking at me, his eyes on his phone, but I could feel the frustration in his words. What's the problem, Sam? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. He's just a friend. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? Because it's not just that. You never tell me about him. You act like I'm the one who doesn't belong here, like he's more important than me. And I'm sick of it. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I wasn't ready for this conversation. I didn't know how to defend something that didn't feel like it needed defending. But Sam was already on edge, and I could tell this was more than just about Alex. It was about everything. About us. Well, I can have him over if I want, I said, my voice sharper than I meant. It's my house too, you know. I didn't ask for permission to talk to my friend. You don't get to control who I see or who I talk to. The words hung in the air. Sam didn't say anything at first. He just stared at me, his jaw clenched. And then, without another word, he stood up, grabbed his jacket, and walked out of the room. It was as if the entire atmosphere shifted in an instant. The weight of his silence crushed the air between us. He didn't come back that night. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me wanted to run after him, beg him to stay. But another part of me was relieved. How had we gotten here? Was this what he wanted all along? I had said it out loud, and now he was gone. And I was left sitting in the quiet house, the weight of the words I'd spoken hanging over me like a storm cloud. The next morning, Sam still hadn't returned. The house felt emptier than it ever had before. The silence that had once been the background to our life now felt deafening. It was my house, after all. But it felt like I was living in a place I didn't recognize anymore. I didn't know how long I sat there, trying to figure out what had just happened, but at that moment, I realized something. Sam leaving wasn't just about Alex. It was about everything I had been holding back. The distance, the resentment, the things unsaid. I had finally broken free from the silence, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next. But maybe, just maybe, it was time for everything to unravel. Sam didn't come home that night. The hours dragged on, each minute feeling like a year. I stayed up, sitting in the same spot on the couch, staring at the empty doorway, waiting for him to walk through. But he never did. The silence in the house was suffocating, and I found myself wondering if this was the end. It wasn't the first time we'd had an argument, but something about this one felt different. This time, I had crossed a line. And in doing so, I had lost something I wasn't sure I could get back. The next morning, I woke up to the same empty house. I made coffee, the smell of it filling the silence. I tried to convince myself that Sam would be back soon, that this was just another one of our stupid fights. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I knew he was gone, and I couldn't figure out if I wanted him to return or if I was secretly relieved that he wasn't there. I spent the day pacing around the house, doing everything and nothing at once. I cleaned, rearranged the kitchen, even folded the laundry. Anything to distract myself from the reality of the situation. My mind kept drifting to the argument, to the words I'd said, to the look on his face when he left. I kept wondering if I had gone too far, if there was any way to fix this. But I knew deep down that once something like this was said, there was no taking it back. The damage was done. Around noon, I called my mom. I didn't want to, but I had no one else to talk to. She'd always been the one I turned to when things went wrong. She picked up after the third ring. "Ella. What's wrong?" she asked, her voice full of concern. She could always tell when something was off. "Mom. I don't know what to do," I said, my voice trembling. "Sam left. He didn't come home last night. We had an argument, and now I think he's gone for good." I could hear the silence on the other end of the line. I knew she was processing what I had just said. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say. Do you want me to come over?" "No," I said quickly. "I'm fine. I need someone to listen." She paused for a moment before speaking again. "I can't tell you what to do, Ella. But you need to think about whether this is really what you want. I know you love him, but sometimes, love isn't enough. Sometimes, it's about whether you're willing to fight for it or let it go." I didn't have an answer. I didn't even know what that meant. But her words stuck with me. I had spent so much time trying to keep everything together, trying to make things work with Sam. But somewhere along the way, I'd lost myself in the process. And now, with him gone, I had to figure out who I was without him. I ended the call, feeling a strange mixture of relief and sadness. I knew my mom was right, but I wasn't ready to face that reality. Not yet. The hours dragged on, and still, Sam didn't come back. I kept replaying the argument in my mind. I could feel the weight of my words, heavy and unforgiving. But it wasn't just about the argument. It was about everything that had built up over the years, the small resentments, the unspoken frustrations, the distance that had grown between us without either of us acknowledging it. By the time the evening came, I was sitting on the couch again, my eyes fixed on the door, waiting for a knock that never came. I didn't know what I was waiting for, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The house felt colder, emptier. The space that had once been shared, filled with laughter and conversation, now felt like a reminder of what we had lost. That night, I decided to call Alex again. I wasn't sure what I needed from him, but I needed someone to talk to. When he answered, his voice was warm, familiar. "Ella. What's up? You okay?" he asked, his tone light but concerned. "I don't know, Alex," I said, the words tumbling out. "I messed up. I told Sam it was my house too, that I could have you over if I wanted. And he left. I think he's gone for good." There was a pause on the other end, and then Alex spoke softly. "Ella, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. But you've got to do what feels right for you. You can't keep holding on to something that's already slipping away." His words hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it was the truth. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a small weight lift from my chest. It wasn't a solution, but it was the beginning of something. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized I wasn't just waiting for Sam to come back. I was waiting for myself to decide what I wanted. The silence in the house felt different now, not just empty, but full of possibilities. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was just the beginning of something new. I wasn't sure yet, but I knew I had to face whatever came next. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I moved through the house like a ghost, feeling more like a stranger in my own life than ever before. Sam didn't come back, not once. His absence was like an open wound that I kept trying to ignore, but it hurt deeper with every passing moment. I kept telling myself that he just needed space, that everything would blow over, but deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. Something had shifted, and I wasn't sure if it was something I could fix. I kept looking at my phone, hoping for a message, a call, anything. But there was nothing. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. The silence was louder than anything Sam had ever said to me. And in that silence, I was left alone with my thoughts I wasn't ready to face. I kept wondering if I had pushed him too far. Maybe I had. Maybe I should have apologized for the words I'd said, for pushing him away. But every time I thought about it, I found myself remembering all the little things that had been building up between us. The arguments that never seemed to end. The way we used to talk, and how now, even in the same room, we seemed so far apart. It wasn't just about the fight with Alex. It was about everything. The way we had grown apart without either of us acknowledging it. I had tried to hold on, tried to keep everything together, but somewhere along the way, I lost myself in the process. And now, Sam was gone, and I wasn't sure what to do with the space he left behind. It wasn't just the physical space, either. It was the emotional distance. I felt empty, hollow in a way I couldn't describe. I had built so much of my identity around us, around Sam, around our life together, that without him, I felt like I didn't know who I was anymore. I kept waiting for him to come back and fill that space, but the longer he stayed away, the more I realized that I couldn't wait forever. Then came the unexpected. A message from Sam. It was late, almost midnight, and I had just gotten out of the shower when my phone buzzed. My heart skipped a beat as I saw his name on the screen. I stared at the message for a long time, trying to decipher its meaning. "I need to talk. Can we meet tomorrow?" The words felt like a lifeline, but also like a brick to the chest. I didn't know if I was ready for whatever he had to say. But deep down, I knew I needed to hear it. I needed to know if this was the end or if there was something worth saving. The next morning, I got dressed in something simple, nothing too fancy, nothing too casual. I didn't know what Sam would want from this meeting, but I wanted to look like I had some semblance of control over my life. I had spent so many days in sweatpants, not caring about anything, and today was going to be different. I met him at a cafe we used to go to when we were dating. It felt strange, sitting across from him in that familiar setting, knowing that things between us had changed so drastically. He looked tired, his face drawn and weary. He didn't look like the Sam I had spent years with. It was as if a part of him was missing. "Ella," he started, his voice quiet, almost hesitant. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have left like that." I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but it was quickly followed by a flood of frustration. "You left without a word, Sam. You just disappeared." "I know. I wasn't thinking. I needed to be away for a bit. I've been feeling overwhelmed, Ella. I don't know how to explain it. Everything just changed, and I didn't know how to fix it." I nodded, trying to process his words. "I get it," I said slowly. "I've been feeling it too. But why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you tell me how you were feeling?" "I don't know," he said, shaking his head. "I guess I thought it would just get better on its own. But I realized that it wasn't going to. And I was scared, Ella. Scared that we were both drifting apart and I didn't know how to stop it." I could feel my heart aching as he spoke. This wasn't just about the argument anymore. It was about something deeper, something we had both ignored for far too long. The love we once had been overshadowed by resentment, by silence. We had both been too afraid to confront the truth. "So what now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He took a deep breath, looking at me with eyes full of regret. "I don't know. But I want to try. I'm not asking for everything to go back to the way it was, but I don't want to give up on us, Ella. Not without trying." I felt a lump form in my throat. Part of me wanted to walk away, to end it all and never look back. But another part of me, one that had been buried under the weight of everything, wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that we could make it work, that we could rebuild what had been broken. "I don't know if I can do this," I said, my voice shaky. "But I'm willing to try, Sam. I don't want to lose you either." We sat there in silence for a while, the noise of the cafe around us fading into the background. For the first time in days, I felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe this wasn't the end after all. Maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. A week had passed since Sam and I sat down at the cafe. It wasn't easy. Every day felt like an emotional tug-of-war, pulling between the hope that things could get better and the fear that we were just delaying the inevitable. Sam was trying, I could see that. He was more present, helping around the house, making small gestures that showed he cared. But I wasn't sure if it was enough. The conversations we had were raw and honest, but I couldn't help but feel like we were treading water, trying not to drown without knowing if we could ever reach the shore. We talked about everything, the distance between us, the things we had ignored, the way our relationship had become a series of routines instead of moments of connection. It was exhausting, facing those truths, but at the same time, it was also liberating. I had never really confronted the depth of what had been wrong until then. And as painful as it was, I knew it was necessary. Then came that day. It wasn't anything special, just a normal afternoon, but everything changed in that one moment. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone when Sam walked in from the garage. He looked at me, a look I couldn't quite decipher on his face. "Ella," he said, his voice cautious. "We need to talk." I put my phone down, suddenly feeling the weight of the moment. About what? He stood there for a moment, taking a deep breath, as if preparing himself for something difficult. About us. About what we're doing here. My heart began to race. I could already tell that whatever he was about to say would shift everything. I nodded, silently urging him to continue. I know we've been trying, he said, his words slow and measured, but I don't think we're getting anywhere. We're just stuck. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Are you saying you want to end things? He didn't answer immediately, his gaze falling to the floor as if the weight of the question was too much to bear. I don't know, Ella. I've been thinking a lot about what you said that day, about the fact that it's your house too. And it made me realize something. I don't think I've been fair to you. I've been holding on to things that we should have addressed a long time ago. I've been selfish, and I haven't been the partner you needed me to be. I stood up, my legs suddenly weak beneath me. Sam, I don't know what you want from me. You keep saying we need to try, but every time we have a conversation, it feels like we're just getting further apart. I know, he admitted. But I don't think that's what we need. We've been too focused on fixing what's broken instead of focusing on what we can build. And maybe, what we need isn't more talking or fixing. Maybe it's space. Time. To figure out who we are when we're not trying to force things. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. Space. Time. The idea of being apart wasn't something I had ever considered. But as he spoke, I began to understand. It wasn't about giving up, it was about giving each other the chance to breathe, to live without the weight of expectation suffocating us. I think we need to take a step back, Sam continued, his voice barely above a whisper. Not forever, but just long enough for us to figure out what we really want. For the first time in days, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I didn't feel like I was clinging to something that was slipping through my fingers. I felt a sense of clarity. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was just the beginning of something new. Something where we could find ourselves again, with or without each other. I think you're right, I said, the words heavy but freeing. Maybe we do need space. But that doesn't mean we're giving up. Sam looked at me, his eyes searching mine, as if trying to find the truth in them. No, it doesn't. But we need to find out who we are when we're not trying to hold on to what we were. I nodded, a sense of peace settling over me. Maybe it wasn't the solution I had wanted, but it was a step in the right direction. Maybe, in the end, the space we needed wasn't just physical, it was the space to grow, to rediscover what we had lost in the first place. And I wasn't sure what that would look like, but I was willing to find out. 2 months passed, and things were different. Sam and I had taken the time we needed. He moved into the guest room, and we both spent more time apart than we had in years. It was strange, living in the same house but not sharing a life. But in the quiet, I started to feel like I was breathing again, like I was rediscovering parts of myself that had been lost. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. We still spoke, still communicated, but the urgency was gone. No more heated arguments or resentments buried beneath surface-level conversations. We were simply two people trying to figure out who they were, not as a couple, but as individuals. I started seeing a therapist, and Sam did the same. It was the first time in our relationship that we had truly taken the time to address what had been broken, not just in us, but in how we had been living. Then came the evening I had been dreading, the one where we both knew that something had to give. Sam asked me to meet him at the park where we had first met, the place where it all began. The thought of it made my stomach twist. I wasn't sure what he was going to say, but I knew this was it, the moment where we either figured it out or we didn't. When I got there, Sam was sitting on the bench, looking out at the empty field. He stood when he saw me, and for a brief moment, we just looked at each other. I could see the same hesitation in his eyes that had been there for so long. But there was something else too, a softness. A recognition that this wasn't easy for either of us. Ella, Sam began, his voice steady but full of emotion. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realized something. I nodded, unsure of what was coming. I've realized that we've been holding on to the past for too long. Holding on to what we were, instead of figuring out what we could be. We've spent so much time trying to fix something that was already broken, that we lost sight of the fact that maybe we're not the same people we were when we first met. The words hit me like a wave. I had spent so much time trying to salvage what we had, I hadn't really considered the possibility that we might need to let go of that old version of us. But hearing him say it out loud, I felt the weight lift. Maybe he was right. Maybe we were both too different now to go back to what we once had. I don't want to give up on us, Sam continued, taking a step closer to me. But I think we need to redefine what this is. I want us to be real with each other. Not pretending that we can go back, but finding a way forward. Tears welled in my eyes as I looked at him. For the first time in months, I felt like we were on the same page. Like we were no longer fighting against each other but facing the future together, no matter what that future looked like. I don't know what's next, I said, my voice shaking. But I know that I'm not ready to let go of you, Sam. I want to try to build something new. Something that works for us. He smiled softly, the weight of the past still there, but lighter now. Me too. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm willing to find out with you. And just like that, something shifted between us. We weren't starting over, but we were starting something new. Something that was ours, built on honesty, understanding, and the willingness to grow. It wasn't going to be easy, and I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were ready to face it, together. Subscribe to our channel for powerful real stories that touch your heart. Join a community where emotions run deep and every story brings a new perspective. Don't miss out, hit that bell for weekly updates.